Hey, super excited to be here and welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about loneliness because that is something that has a huge impact on a lot of people, and it's super hard not to fall into that trap. It's it's such it's so hard not to be volatile and vulnerable to loneliness sometimes in life. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about that because I found myself in a similar situation not too long ago. So let me share my story and we'll break it down a little bit to work through that kind of stuff. So I found myself feeling quite lonely, and the deal was I work up here in Alaska, and it gets dark up here in the winter, and so if you don't spend a lot of time outside, or you don't get a lot of sunlight, even if you do spend time outside, you don't get that vitamin D which you need. Your body needs vitamin D. It keeps you in a good mood a lot of times. Keeps you out of depression. And there's a lot of people will tell you that up here. A lot of people who have that seasonal depression kind of situation. So I found myself working um, on both Thanksgiving, Christmas, and my birthday this year. So I wasn't just working; I was also alone for those holidays. Um, because I was on for a 24-hour shift basically. So I didn't really get to celebrate, and I didn't really um wasn't super exciting. Let's put it that way, right? I love my job, I love what I do, but wasn't it's a little harder when you got to work on holidays, especially 3 in a row and your birthday. Um so yeah, I found myself in a situation where I was feeling lonely, but I first noticed it as sadness. Um I was kind of down, kind of sad, kind of upset. And I started looking into ways to embrace this feeling. And I realized that I was actually experiencing a lot of loneliness. And um, the thing about loneliness is you experience that when you're feeling disconnected. And so I started looking at what was going on. I started looking at the big picture because that's what's important. That's what you need to do. When you feel alone, you need to look at the big picture. You need to not just look at yourself and the feeling, look at the big picture, right? And I said, well, geez, I've worked 3 holidays um, and spent them by myself, and it's winter here. It's dark. I'm not getting a lot of sunlight. Haven't been outside a whole lot because I've been working. I've been focusing on school and focusing on a lot of other volunteer activities and work and self growth. So I haven't been outside a whole lot. Wasn't taking a vitamin D supplement, um, and I hadn't really spent any time with people in a while, any really bonding time. Um, and on top of that, there was a couple other things. Some plans got canceled that would have allowed me to connect more. But yeah, I started looking at the big picture and I started seeing all these things and realizing that wow, I really haven't had an opportunity to connect with people in a while, not physically, not in person, and not in a intimate in a good bonding sense, not actually romantic intimate, but just intimate in a conversational sense. I hadn't really sat down and had any deep conversations or taken a walk with any friends or anything like that in a long time. So so again, the thing about loneliness is when you start to feel lonely, and everybody does, again, it's such an easy trap to fall into. You have to realize that you're experiencing a disconnectedness. And sometimes it's hard not to, because again, whether it's because you're super busy that you end up disconnecting, or because you're depressed that you end up disconnecting, or because someone broke up with you so you can't help but retreat, um, you end up disconnecting. And when you disconnect, you experience loneliness. And there's a lot of other things that come from that. I have a couple past experiences that this experience for me was causing to show up. And like that's another thing is, you got to be careful, like what kind of person are you, where have you been, where are you coming from? Because a loneliness can make you feel depressed. It can make you feel like you're all on your own. It can make you feel like nobody loves you. It can make you feel abandoned. It can make you feel mistrusted. It can make you feel very insignificant. It can make you be very impulsive and seek to do things that validate or that will get you attention. So, um, loneliness in and of itself is okay to experience, and you should embrace it. But you got to be careful because there's a lot of downsides. You can slip very far. You don't want to let that happen. The cool thing is, right? Loneliness is a feeling. Um, Sadness is a feeling. Depression, it's a state, but you also feel depressed. It's a feeling. Um, and the beautiful thing about feelings is you have 100% control over your emotions. And sometimes it's super hard to control them. Totally get that. Sometimes it's really hard to turn your emotions around, turn your state of mind around, get yourself out of a bad thought process. But the cool and encouraging thing is, no matter how much motivation it might take you, or maybe little, which is good for you, is you genuinely do have 100% control over your emotions. You can totally reestablish emotional stability, even if you're sad or depressed, or even if you're happy. If you're having a really high, you could totally bring yourself down to a level ground where it's safe to be in, so you don't crash really hard. So it doesn't just apply to bad emotions, it applies to good emotions because all emotions are the same. It applies to all of them. You can control them 100%. And emotional control is something that takes a lot of discipline, and it's something that everybody should seek to work towards. It it really is a necessity. It really establishes a good foundation for you to go out in life and do great things. It makes it so much easier when you have emotional control. An example of that would be if you have disciplined yourself in that sense and gained control over your emotions, and you know how to regulate them to how you truly want to act and be seen and whatnot. If someone came up to you and said something mean and you wanted to lash out and get angry, you'd be able to check yourself real quick and say, that's not appropriate. I'm going to smile, assume this person's having a bad day, and move on. So I want to go back to loneliness, right? Um, yeah, loneliness is it's important to understand that it's okay to be alone. Sometimes you're going to be alone. Realize why you're alone. Establish why you're alone. For me, I was super busy, so I didn't realize how much disconnection I'd done. Wasn't because I was trying to avoid connection. It was just simply I had so much going on, and to keep it all moving in the right direction, I had allowed myself to disconnect, and it had started to affect me in a bad way. So I had to reprioritize what I was aiming at. Um, and again, if you find yourself in that state, look for the disconnectedness because that's probably the case. Get in touch with some good friends. A good place to start is by counting your close friends and being grateful for them because that's going to just reinforce and buttress the idea of I do have friends. I'm not alone. I have people who've got my back type of thing. And um, seek to maintain and rebalance your emotions and to control them. If you notice you're feeling really sad, remind yourself you can control them. You can turn them around. So look for ways to do that. I would highly recommend hopping on YouTube for other advice. A lot of good stuff like that by Elliot Hulse. There's a lot of good TED Talks on loneliness. So if you're finding yourself in that situation and and walking yourself through your situation and looking at the bigger picture of why your loneliness is existing isn't helping, don't hesitate to look out to other sources of motivation and of answers on YouTube, on podcasts, in books, whatever. And yeah, that's it, folks. I hope you learned something good from this, and thanks for watching.